Good morning, I'm Roucelle Soutar. I'm the Head of Finance at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. Welcome to Cockburn Street. It's the first owned headquarters of the Edinburgh Tattoo, and we're really proud to be hosting you here today. We're really sorry that our Chief Exec and producer David Alfrey can't be here today. He's obviously off on a well-earned rest after a very busy August. I have been Financial Controller, Financial Director in a number of public, private and voluntary sector organisations over the last 10 years, and I thought I would today give you just a little bit of perspective from my experience in terms of fundraising. I think I have a fair amount of experience with the fundraising, but not necessarily in the events industry, but I do think that the problems are common throughout. So first of all, I thought I would tell you a couple of stories that have happened to me in the past which have affected my views on fundraising. Firstly, as a young or younger accountant at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland at Edinburgh Zoo, I had just started at that company, and they had just completed an Asiatic lion enclosure of the amount of £250,000, and they'd fundraised for that through individuals and charities. And at that time we had an elderly African lioness called Jodie, who we found out had an infectious disease, and as a result the British Zoo Federation, or the Federation rules, said to us, you can't bring Asiatic lions into the park. So then we had this Asiatic lion enclosure, and the fundraising leaflets had been so specific that we were having an Asiatic lion enclosure, we couldn't actually use it for anything else. So we found ourselves in a bit of a quandary. What's the use of having a sparkling new enclosure with nothing in it? So we actually wrote to the individuals and charities and said to them, can we put maned wolves into this enclosure in the meantime until such time as we can get Asiatic lions in? Some people said no. And as a result, we had to ring fence a quarter of that funding and put it aside and then self-fund the gap. It was very complicated in order to get maned wolves in. And we got maned wolves into the enclosure, and eventually we got Asiatic lions into the enclosure as well. But I think it just demonstrates the complexity of fundraising and how you can make life really difficult for yourself if you don't think ahead of what might happen in the event of fundraising. So I can tell you that since then, any fundraising that I do has been considerably less specific in its wording. And the second one I wanted to tell you was a sort of catch-22 situation. I was the finance director at Project Scotland, which was an employment programme set up by Jack McConnell in 2005. And it was funded by the Scottish Government. And due to essentially political decision on a change of government, we ended up having our core funding removed. And the catch-22 situation for that was that prior to the funding being removed, we still had to fundraise for it. There was still a gap that we had to fundraise for. So we would go to major donors and charities, and we would ask them, you know, will you fundraise? Will you fund this employment project? And they said to us, no, you've got far too much money. The Scottish Government give you lots of money. We're not going to give you any more money. And then afterwards, when the Scottish Government removed our core funding, we went to them and said, well, will you now fund us? And they said, no, you've not got any certainty of income. We're not going to give you any money. So again, a catch-22 situation. And I think a number of people with events, if you have a core funder in events and festivals arena, then I could imagine that that would be something that a lot of you could experience at some point in time. So what fundraising opportunities are out there? From my own fundraising experience, I've fundraised for tiny little charities where I write hundreds of letters every month to large charities where you have to take all your resource and every ounce of skill to nail. I've been involved in council funding, Scottish Government funding, even European funding. And if you've ever been involved in ESF funding, you'll know that the administrative burden of actually having that funding is probably not worth having the funding in the first place. Individual fundraising is no easy task. At Project Scotland, we actually discussed using chuggers or tabard wearers, whatever we call them. At the time, we decided not to use them, but I often wondered what would have happened if we had. Some people think it's a controversial method, so that I think was the reason that we decided not to do it. Sponsors, more commercial opportunity for us. And I think as the events industry, we need to find a way to make our events more attractive to sponsors all year round, rather than just the one big splash during the year, because it would make us more attractive to sponsors. And I think that's a challenge for all of us. So there are many types of fundraising opportunities out there, and I'm sure you're going to hear about a lot of them today. So, some facts about the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo. This year we will turn over £14 million. We've had 18 successive sellouts, and we are pretty much self-funding. Don't get me wrong, we have had funding in the past. Expo have funded our Tattoo Fox book, our Shetland Fiddlers, our Castle Projections even. And Scottish Enterprise funded those amazing grandstands that are coming down from the Esplanade right now. They part-funded that. They've part-funded our growth strategy, our retail strategy, and general hours of business support. But we're very aware here, and we were very lucky that we have an income-generating event, but we're very aware here that we have one event generating income for this organisation. And that event could be very sensitive to economic and political change, or even social change. People just might not want to go anymore. And so it's our ambition to diversify our income streams. So how have we done this? So we've looked at our assets. What do we have? What do we have, and what can we do with it? So just some simple things like Cannonball House, which is our property at the top of Castle Hill. It used to stay empty for 11 months a year, and it was used as a rest area during the show of August. Over the last couple of years, we've refurbished that, and it's now a really busy restaurant with Cantini Cannonball in there. Please feel free to visit and spend some money there, because we'll get commission on it when you come in. And Coburn Street as well. Far too big, this for us at the moment, but we have tenants in the 3rd and 4th floors. And this conference facility as well. Again, another income-generating opportunity for us. But our main purpose, I think, going forward, is our journey to regular overseas tattoos. And this is a picture from Melbourne. We took the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo to Melbourne and Wellington this year. We even built a fake castle. Now we've done this before, we've done it a couple of times before, but our ambition now is to do this more regularly, perhaps every 2 years until 2022, and then every year thereafter. So we're aiming to go to the Gulf in 2018, and we're going to go to China in 2020. And the aim of this is to not only to increase our profile internationally, but also to increase income to pay for all those stands when in 20 years' time they're no longer fit for purpose. And I think as questions for you as event organisers is how can you think differently to cultivate your income sources? What have you got that you can do differently with? So another perspective, did you know that the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo is a charity? Don't know whether some people do, some people don't. Over the years we've donated over £8 million to services in the arts. And we normally donate about £500,000 each year, but in the next 12 months, we will donate £1.5 million to charity. We have regular recipients, mostly service charities, being Army, Navy, and Air Force. But we also have ad hoc applicants. And I thought I would just tell you, just from a charity's perspective, we have our own internal challenges. You have challenges in fundraising, we have challenges in giving. And we're currently going through a charitable policy and process review. And apart from our, we have some very staple people that we give to every year. But aside from that, we get ad hoc applications. And in the past, who we have given to has depended on whose desk it's arrived on at what particular time and what particular time of year as to whether they got funding. And we're trying to tighten that up. And I'm sure that's really common for a lot of charities. Trustees these days have to be fair, transparent, robust. They need to have a decent and clear process, and we are focusing on that. And unrestricted funding has been something that we've discussed recently. We generally have given unrestricted funding to most organisations, and we've decided that we will continue to do that because we recognise that that is an area that is really difficult for a lot of events and, well, any organisation generally. How do you pay the rent, or how do you pay that admin fee if people will only fund your particular project, and that can be quite tricky. So at the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, we're still giving unrestricted funding. So what are the specific event challenges from events and festivals perspective? We've got increasing demand. I think events are becoming a pastime of the nation, and as a result, increasing competition because more people are wanting to do it. We've got reducing public budgets. £1.6 billion is forecast to be cut off the Scottish budget in the next 5 years. And we've got increased public services costs. So we've got a lot of challenges there. And when we're going to our local council and we're saying, give us more money, how do we as an events industry, how do we measure the goodwill of our local event? How do you convince a local authority that an event in a community is going to have a long-lasting effect and make real positive change if all they're worried about is balancing their books on the 31st of March? And again, a difficult subject for us. And sponsorship, often the first to go when commercial companies are looking at their own books and how their costs are increasing as well. Marketing and sponsorship is often the first thing that gets dropped, and that's quite difficult for us. And what will Brexit bring? Who knows? Certainly the disappearance of European funding. Will this be replaced? Who knows? And how will we attract European visitors to our events? It's a big unknown to us. So, in conclusion, the challenges are vast. My advice as head of finance of a business, of a charity, and my previous experience, share your knowledge, help each other like we are today. The more we collaborate, then the more we can influence change and influence governments to support our events. Work in partnership together and save costs wherever possible. And make it easy, and whether it's applying for a charity and asking them to give you some money, whether it's clearly articulating the ask so that it makes a trustee say, yes, I definitely want to give to that charity, I know exactly what they're trying to do, or even if it's a donate now button on your website and Facebook, and make sure it works and it's easy to do. I think the easier we make it, the easier it will be to fundraise. So that's my thoughts. I'll pass over to the real experts for the day. Thank you very much. I'm going to be around at coffee and then later on. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Rucelle. I think it's really fascinating to hear from one of our major signature events, but still there'll be some really common themes. Obviously, we're all coming from different perspectives here, but some common themes there. One thing that you touched on, particularly at the end around partnership, in case I forget to mention it later on, we'd really encourage you to join the Events and Festivals Industry Group, which David Alfrey chairs, and David Alfrey being the producer of the Edinburgh Military Tattoo. That's all about getting people like us together so that we can share our experiences and provide a more cohesive voice for the industry across some of the challenges that we all face from our different perspectives. The information around that is on EventScotland.org. It's coordinated through the Scottish Tourism Alliance and very much as an industry voice. So David is a fantastic chair as well, so please do get involved in that if you're not already. So yeah, great to hear some of these common challenges at different scales. We have got a microphone. Has anyone got any questions for Rucelle before? Anyone? Come on. Stephen.
Hi there, thank you very much. I was just wondering, you mentioned about the Gulf in 2018 and China in 2020. I was just wondering, is that something that's attractive to sponsors as well? Has that been a useful kind of business tool for you, I suppose for Melbourne, but in the past, but going forward as well? Is that's another reason for doing it?
Yes, absolutely, because that means that we're not just doing one event a year, we'll be doing 2 events a year, and yes, that's something that we will be looking at probably in the longer term. As you know, RBS is our main sponsor at the moment, and they sponsor the event at the top of the hill, but there's an opportunity there for could there be a sponsor for all of our events? Yes, I think that is, yeah, the answer is yes. It's a good opportunity.
Anyone else? Oh, James over here.
Looking at it from your perspective as a funder to the charity side, are there any common mistakes that people make when they're coming to the tattoo asking for funding, charities, or even real big turn-offs?
So I would say a common mistake is not reporting back to your trustees. So proactively, I would say. So I mean, we're going to get much more robust in asking people to respond to us. But I think if you're not asked to respond, just respond anyway. You know, just come back and say, this is what I've done with your money, and this is the effect it's had. So I would say that'd be a major thing. And other than that, probably just spelling people's names right and things like that is always a good point as well.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, especially for repeat funding, because after all, you are dealing with individuals. You're dealing with organisations, but also individuals, and showing that you're proactive and responsible for that public money or whatever the source of the money is. I think it puts your organisation in a good light, in a professional light, and it shows that you are really investing your thinking and your time in, you know, the organisation that's also taking the time to support you. So I think that's a great point. Any more questions? One over here. Oh, sorry, David, right here, lady in the pink shirt.
I found it quite difficult. I was a trustee of a charity, and I now have my own company. But I'm finding it difficult for people to look at me as a company rather than a charity, because it seems to be, for all I'm doing charitable work, I've never ever wanted to go down that charity route again. But because I've got a not-for-profit company, people are generally, you know, a bit more wary. So I know there's a lot of advantages of being a charity, but the problem for small companies, especially, you know, who are dealing with very small events, they tend to be frozen out, you know, if you don't have that charity name behind you. So do you think there's other ways that not-for-profit companies, small ones, can look, you know, to people for sponsorship? How would that be different from approaching sponsorship as a charity, for instance?
Well, I mean, sponsorship itself is more about what you deliver for that sponsor. So whether you're a charity or not is probably should be irrelevant, really. And the sponsorship is how much coverage can you give to somebody for them, you know, RBS sponsoring the tattoo on the top of the hill. I don't think they concern themselves too much about whether we're a charity or not. It's about what they get out of it. Does that answer your question?
Well, you're a huge international, you know, you're
Okay,
massive
yeah.
out there. For instance, you know, what I do is just very, very small. And although at the moment I'm self-funding, but the point being is people who like myself, and I've spoken to an awful lot of people who have done local events, who are trying to find funding. It's really, really difficult, because if you don't have, it's chicken and egg situation, because if you don't have a profile, you know, essentially, you know, it's very, very difficult. I mean, the international tattoo is massive all over the world. If you're a small group trying to find that funding, you will get, you know, locals or individuals who will help. But it's very difficult to go to sponsors now, because probably because you don't have that profile. So it's actually almost a PR exercise before you even start.
Yeah, and I mean, my advice on that would be to look at your local newspaper and find out who's doing the most adverts in the local newspaper, who looks like they're most involved in the community, and try and find out from people, if you know people in the community who work there, what is it that chief exec's most interested in? What do you think would he be proud to sponsor? I don't know what your event is, but would he be proud to sponsor that event? And quite often in those sort of circumstances, when it is a small company, it's generally small owner-managed businesses that do that sort of sponsorship. And I would advise trying to network your way in there is probably the only way you're going to do it, because it will come down to that owner-managed.
Individuals,
Yeah.
yeah. Great. Okay, we're going to move on to the next speaker. Next up we have Louis. Thank you, Rucelle.
Okay.
Thank you.